Good morning, friends. Today we are here with our fifth chapter, that is the Age of Industrialization. And today we will discuss the first part of this chapter. So friends, let's move ahead. So friend, in this video, we will discuss on the time before Industrial Revolution and the coming up of factory. So friends, let's move ahead and start our discussion with before the Industrial Revolution. My dear friend, in this chapter, we will look at the history by focusing first on Britain, then the first industrial nation, and then India, where the pattern of industrial change was conditioned by colonial rule. So friends, when we talk about the situation before the Industrial Revolution, then there is a assumptions, मतलब कुछ धारणाएं हैं. So what are the assumptions? The first is industrialization, and here industrialization is often associated with growth of factory industry. And second is industrial production, मतलब जब हम इंडस्ट्रियल प्रोडक्शन की बात करते हैं तो इट इज ऑफन associated with the production of factory. Now, the third assumption is industrial worker. It means when we talk of industrial worker, so we mean normally about the factory workers. And the next we are going to discuss, that is proto-industrialization. So friend, सबसे पहले we should know what is proto-industrialization. So friend, the word proto indicate the first or the early form of anything. So when we talk of proto-industrialization, in this it is assumed that the large scale of industrial production for an international market before factories in England and Europe. Now friends, let's move ahead and continue our discussion with before the Industrial Revolution. Friends, now we will discuss what happened in 17th and 18th century. So we will be discussing on the important aspect and the incident during this century. So in this century, the merchant from the town in Europe began moving to the countryside, supplying money to the peasant and artisan. So the question arises कि वो money क्यों देते थे? Just because to produce for an international market. It means they can work for the international market. The second incident was there was a expansion of the world trade and acquisition of the colonies in the different part of the world, and because of this the demand for goods began growing. Now let's move ahead and continue our discussion with before the Industrial Revolution. Friends, the question or the point we will discuss now, that why they turn to countryside, मतलब वो countryside क्यों चले गए? And friend, this was all because the urban craft and the trained guilds were powerful, and because of this the merchant could not expand production within the town. Friends, there was monopoly of association of producer because they were trained craft people and maintained control over production. Even they used to regulate competition and prices, and they restrict the entry of new entrants, and because of this there was difficulties for the new merchant entrants in the market. So friends, now let's move ahead and continue our discussion with before the Industrial Revolution. So friends, now we will look at the condition of poor peasants and artisan in the countryside. Friends, as we know that it was difficult for the new merchant to set up the business in the town, so they turned to the countryside. And in countryside, these poor peasants and artisans began to work for the merchant. Friends, this was a time when open fields were disappearing and common were being closed, and cottages and poor peasants start looking for alternative source of income who were once upon a time dependent on common land for the survival, gathering their firewood, vegetables, straw. And friend, during this time, tiny plot of land was provided which was insufficient to provide work for all member of household. Now friends, let's move ahead and continue our discussion with before the Industrial Revolution. Friends, now we will discuss on close relationship between town and countryside. Friends, within this system, a close relationship developed between the town and the countryside because the merchants were based in town, but the work was done mostly in the countryside. My dear friend, a merchant clother in England purchased wool from wood stapler and carried out to the spinners. The yarn, which is commonly known as thread, that was spun was taken in subsequent stages of production to weavers, and the next the fullers and to the dryers. The finishing was done in London before the export merchant sold the cloth in international market, and इसी वजह से the London in fact came to be known as finishing center. Now friends, let's move ahead and continue our discussion with before the Industrial Revolution. Friends, now we will discuss the proto-industrial system, that is a part of network of commercial exchange. My dear friends, it was controlled by merchants and the goods were produced by the vast number of producers working within their family farms, not in factory. My dear friend, at this stage, 20 to 25 workers were employed by each merchant. It means that each clothier was controlling 100 of workers. Now friend, let's move ahead. Now we will discuss on the coming up of the factory. My dear friend, earliest factory in England was established in 1730, but it was only in the late 18th century that the number of factories multiplied. My dear friend, the first symbol of new era was cotton. Its production boomed in the 19th century, and in 1760 Britain was importing 2.5 million pounds of raw cotton to feed its cotton industry. And friends, by 1787 this import rise to 22 million pounds. Friends, this increase was linked to a number of changes within the process of production. Now friends, let's move ahead. Now we will continue our discussion on the coming up of the factory. Friends, now we will discuss about the production process. My dear friend, 18th century में बहुत सारे inventions हुए, and because of these inventions, the process of production process increased. So, अगर हम inventions की बात करें, तो they were such as carding, twisting, spinning, rolling. So, friend, these invention, what happened that they increase the output per worker and enable the worker to produce more, and they made possible that the production of stronger thread and yarn. It means कि इन inventions की वजह से production भी बढ़ गया और अच्छी क्वालिटी भी बनने लगी. My dear friends, now you should know here that the first cotton mill was established by Richard Arkwright. Friends, now let's move ahead and continue our discussion with the coming of the factory. Friends, we are talking about production process. Friends, जैसा कि हमें पता है कि अभी तक cloth production was spread all over the countryside, but it was carried out within the village household. But now, the costly new machine was purchased and it was set up and maintained in the mill. It means कि जो भी production process था वो सारे को इकट्ठा करके मिल के अंदर ही किया जाने लगा, एंड इसकी वजह से ज्यादा केयरफुल सुपरवाइजन हो पाता था, जिसकी वजह से क्वालिटी के साथ साथ लेबर रेगुलेशन में भी काफी मदद मिली. Now friends, let's move ahead. Now we will discuss on what we have learned in this video. So friends, in this video we have learnt about the time before Industrial Revolution, the coming up of the factory, and the reference is History Class 10th textbook. And friend, in next video we will talk about the pace of industrial change, hand labor and steam power, and the life of workers. Till then, thank you.